kids, it's Mr. Fly here, hope you're well. Very excited because I'm out and about on another bike. This is a special bike because it's my next long-term loan from the very kind guys up at Hinckley, up at the Triumph factory. This is the Triumph Tiger Sport. So if you stick around and stay tuned, next couple of minutes I'll tell you my initial impressions of it. So I have to come clean and put my cards on the table at the start of this review because I'm a big fan of the Triumph Tiger generally. I owned the precursor to this bike, which used to be called the Tiger 1050. I had a 2009 model and I had that for 3 years. I loved the bike. I eventually sold it to get my GS, but I still miss that bike to this day, which is why I was quite keen to ride this. This is the brand new model. This has been out since the middle of last year, middle of 2016, and it's had quite a lot of significant updates since the bike I rode. In particular, it's had some engine tweaks. It's got it's electronic now. It's got riding modes. It's got a ride-by-wire throttle. It's got a single-sided swing arm. It's got lots of cosmetic differences. So it's quite a different bike to the one I own. So very interested to see how she goes on this test ride. And the first thing that strikes me riding this bike, and I've been riding it now for the last half an hour or so, I've done about 30 or 40 miles on it so far, so this is very much initial impressions at this stage. But the first thing, it's just all-round improved on the old Tiger. It feels light and flickable, which I can never accuse my old bike of feeling. And the gearbox is lovely. The gearbox on my Tiger was clunky and horrible. The worst gearbox on any bike I've ever ridden. But on this one, absolutely smooth as you like, no problems whatsoever, as you'd expect, I guess. It's a brand new bike. In terms of seating position, very, very comfortable. Bars are nice and wide. You're sat upright with your legs tucked quite high underneath you in a fairly sporty position there, in that the sort of angle of your knees, if you like, is quite acute. But it's comfortable. You're not leaning forward at all or anything like that, so you could certainly ride this bike for hours and hours with no fatigue whatsoever. Your legs are sort of splayed out quite a long way. It feels quite wide, and I quite like that. It's quite a comfortable position, and you've got this big old frontal area to protect you from the weather, which is nice. Triumph also added these hand shields as standard now on the Tiger, which is great for keeping your hands warm. You can of course get the bike with heated grips as well. I don't think it's got it on these, but on this particular one. But my hands, I've just got my normal gloves on. It's not a particularly warm day, but my hands are quite toasty behind these shields. Quick overtake while I've got the chance. And the thing that I miss about my old Tiger is exactly that, the old triple engine, absolutely amazing unit. It's the 1050cc, which is the same as the one used in the Speed Triple, so you can sort of think of this, if you like, as a sensible Speed Triple. It's the same engine, although it has been detuned a little bit, as is often the case when manufacturers put these nuts engines into more sensible bikes, but it's not detuned to the degree that it's got no go about it, as you just saw when I overtook there. If you need to suddenly pile on the speed, then there's absolutely no lack of power. It's 126 brake horsepower, this bike, and it's absolutely ample for normal on-road type riding. I mean, this is very much in the sports tourer bracket. It's not a sports bike, but at the same time it's no slouch. This is a bike that would go head to head with things like the Versys or the Suzuki V-Strom 1000. It's not in the same league as things like the Multistrada or the GS even. It's in a cheaper bracket. It's about £10,600 I think on the road. So as I say, it's competing with the Suzuki and the Kawasaki more than the Ducati and the BMW. And I for one think this, just on this initial ride, and because I'm biased towards Triumph anyway, because as I mentioned at the start, I love the Tiger, I think this just beats the other bikes hands down on all sorts of fronts, but not least the looks. I think the bike just looks fantastic, and in the new colour scheme and graphics I think it looks really good. One thing I have noticed that I don't like too much about it though is the wind protection. Although you've got a good frontal area here, so it keeps a lot of the wind off, I am getting a bit of turbulence off this screen. Now this is set at its highest position, and it is adjustable via a bizarre sort of, you rock it down manually. I mean, it works, but it's a bit you know, agricultural, particularly getting it up again when you're on the move, so to speak. So yeah, in the completely upright position, I am feeling a little bit of turbulence on the top of my head, and it's not smooth stuff, it's the horrible dirty air, so it's sort of at high speeds it makes your head vibrate a bit. So I think what this would benefit from is something like one of those MRA screens or the little spoiler on the top, just to smooth out the turbulent air, but that's a fairly minor point. That's the only thing so far I found that I don't like about the bike. She handles beautifully. I think they've adjusted the geometry slightly over the older bike that I'm used to, and once you set her up in the corner, she just sits there, lovely and stable, which is just perfect if you're in a sort of all-day cruise mode. So in the sort of 7 years of development since my old Tiger to this one, Triumph really have done a top job at improving the bike, because I can't get over how much different this feels to the bike I was so used to. It's just feels so much lighter and flickable. They've just done nothing but improve it. I mean, it's got these little winglets here that helps keep the wind off you as well at the sides, so there's no buffeting on the chest or sides, which is nice. The height of the bike has been reduced slightly, or at least the seat height, so I can now get my feet flat on the deck and feel completely confident with it, whereas it used to feel like it wanted to fall over and topple over, and in fact I had my old Tiger 1050 lowered, it felt that high, whereas this one now, feet flat on the deck, no problems at all. Mirrors work absolutely lovely. Look a bit stalky, but you know, that's the nature of mirrors, I guess. But great view out the back. I can see behind me. I'm not just looking at my shoulders or my elbows, so that's great. Okay, right, let's come into the splendid town of Towcester, see if we can find somewhere to stop, and show you what I mean about this being a good looking bike. The bike is nice and balanced though, filtering, not that this really is filtering, but I imagine in a busy town filtering would not be a problem. It's quite narrow, or rather I should say the bars are relatively wide, so if you get the bars through, the rest of the bike is going to follow no problem. And lovely and agile as well. Right, let's find somewhere to stop and show you around. Ah, disabled. Good. Stick it over here for 5 minutes. Okay. Here she is then, the Triumph Tiger Sport 1050, resplendent in this black with sort of fluorescent-y bits. Just bear with me, I'll get my iPhone out and I can give you a proper look round. Okay, let's get this show on the road. Okay, rolling. So, yeah, as I say, this is, I think, looks, of this class of bike, I think this looks by far nicer than things like the Kawasaki Versys and the V-Strom. Matter of taste, obviously. Make sure I'm not about to walk into the road. But I think it looks a splendid bike. And although this has been around since, I think, about 2007, this particular design, I still think it looks pretty modern today. I don't think it's looking dated at all. It looks particularly good with the sort of fluorescent accents, I think. So in terms of the numbers then, just to go through some of the specs, as I say, it's 126 horsepower, 106 newton meters of torque at 7,000 RPM. It's been fitted with a slip assist clutch, which is really light to use. It's got, as I say, the electronics package, of course, ABS, traction control, as you'd expect these days. Of course, it's Euro 4 compliant, so it has all that stuff. It's got, if we have a look down the front, it's got Nissin brakes, which are very strong, feel really good. And just come around the other side, I can show you this splendid single-sided swing arm that it's now fitted with. Just shows off that wheel quite nicely. This looks a lot neater than it used to do with the double-sided jobby. I mentioned the seat is very comfy and it feels a lot lower than my old bike. It's actually 830mm, the seat height. Very manageable, the way it's sculpted, you can get your feet down no problem at all, and I'm just a short chap. Dry weight 218 kilograms, and it's got 20 litre tank capacity, so fill her up with 20 litres of fuel and you're going to be looking at something like 230 kilograms, so not the lightest bike but not particularly heavy either. Suspension on it is adjustable for both preload and rebound on both ends, so to speak, and also compression damping on the front end. It's hefty old forks. I'll just show you, we've got the adjustment there, and it feels really nice from a sort of damping point of view, not too hard, not too soft. The controls, usual sort of spread. We've got cruise control on the right hand bar, which is just a bit, well, just doesn't make sense to me why you'd put it on the right hand bar, but it's nice to have cruise control. We'll go through a bit more of the display later, but it's a fairly dated looking display now, I guess. And then on this side you've got some pretty good quality switchgear, but here you can select the various information options and so on, as well as all the usual stuff that you'd expect. Do love the design of the tank on the Tiger, splendid. And the on-the-road cost, according to the Triumph website, of this beautiful looking bike, £10,900. Actually, I was slightly wrong earlier. 10,900, so less than 11 grand for one of these. Right, let's jump on, ride some more. Let's just see what she's like to manhandler. A bit of a slope here, but actually it feels very light. None of the top heaviness that I expected. Ugh. Got a big old spidery stand that I remember. Right. Pretty good steering lock, good turning circle. Yeah, so this is one of those bikes that for some reason doesn't get covered that much in the press. I guess it's because it's not seen as a very exciting bike. And I think that's a mistake, because I personally find it really nice. I think with these improvements, to me, just on this first ride, as I say, I've been maybe riding it for 40 minutes, an hour now, it feels just as good as a GS to me, handling wise, possibly better. And it's certainly an awful lot cheaper. So the display on the bike reminds me very much of the display actually on my Street Triple. And it's a fairly standard sort of Triumph display. Well, I guess these days this sort of thing is starting to look a little bit dated when you've got all LCD screens out there and so on. However, it's very clear to use. There's no doubt what you're looking at, which is great. Very clear and easy to see your speed. It's got a useful fuel gauge, which is something that used to wind me up that so many bikes don't have them, but we have got one here. There's lots of information available, you know, the usual trip computers and so on board. And also, that's rather annoyingly, another thing that's a bit rubbish is the mode switch here is actually there. It's not on the handlebars. So if you want to change mode, I'm in sport mode at the moment. It's got 3 riding modes, sport, road and wet. If you want to change mode, you have to press it there, which is a bit annoying. It just makes more sense to have it up here on the handlebars somewhere. But otherwise, very clear, plain to use dash. The big triple engine I love on this bike, it's very, I'd describe it as eager. It just feels like it wants to go. It's obviously not as brutal as that when it's fitted on the Speed Triple, which is a much lighter bike and in a different state of tune. But it certainly does want to go. As soon as you give the throttle some, you're off. So that's great. The only thing about it, I guess, is it doesn't sound so great. The stock can is very quiet, I can hardly hear it. So I think if I was to have one of these again, I would definitely replace that. I used to have an Arrow can on my old Tiger, and it sounded fantastic, so that's the #1 change sticker, aftermarket exhaust on it. So to summarise then my first impressions of the bike, now having ridden it for about an hour or so, very, very favourable. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I'm sort of biased anyway because I just happen to like the Triumph Tiger, the looks of it, or the Tiger Sport I should say. But Triumph really have put some significant improvements on the bike since my day with it, and on this current 2017 model there's not a lot to not like that I can tell. It's comfortable, you get your feet on the floor easily, the mirrors work nicely, the engine is beautiful, pulls away lovely, the dash beautiful, handling lovely, lovely and stable in the corners. The only things at the moment I can find that I don't like about it is there's a bit of turbulence off the top of this screen that I think could be fixed with some aftermarket kit, and also getting at the mode button down there, bit of a faff, bit of a reach forward to do it, no big deal, but there you go, it would be better if it was on the bar. But other than that, really like the bike, so looking forward to riding the pants off this bike over the next few weeks while I've got it. So if you're interested in this sort of machine, stick around and stay tuned, there's going to be lots more videos on this bike coming. Okay, look forward to speaking to you next time. Until then, this has been the Missenden Flyer. Cheerio. Gotta love the triple. You really can hustle this thing round. And when I say it's a sports tourer, it's very much more on the sporty end, I think. Great fun.